Hello and welcome to Leading Real Life. We are your hosts, Rob and Shannon Olson, and we are here to help you step into your role as leader in your life and in your home.
You nailed it.
I did it.
I never nail it. I always don't nail it. You nailed it.
I did it.
So good.
So before we get too far into today's podcast, we just want to we're going to ask you to follow and subscribe in all of the different places. So if you are listening on Spotify or iTunes, we would love it if you just subscribed right away to this podcast. We'll be posting weekly. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can subscribe there as well. Make sure you hit the notification bell so that you never miss.
Yeah, we're going to be having weekly episodes. So
Exactly.
make sure you don't miss it.
And then finally, you can find us on all the different social media channels, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and we have a website, and you can just search Leading Real Life and you'll find us there.
But on Twitter, we're not that exciting.
No, we're not very active at all.
We
so
don't say
expect
words
much there,
on
but
Twitter.
We are there. If you absolutely need to find us, we are there.
We are there.
So today we are going to be continuing our conversation from last week where we discussed the qualities of a leader.
And so this week, what have we called it?
Qualities of a leader.
Part two.
So creative.
Genius.
Yes. So good.
I think I came up with that.
So basically, we want to just discuss the principles that we talked about last week and how we can apply them to our relationships and to parenting as well. So just a quick recap about the different qualities that we discussed last week.
And just so you know, we curated this from what people were talking about with us when they talked about what a good leader was. And then we just put them together into what we thought was a nice package for 3 points that make a good leader.
So these were our 3 main key takeaways of what a good quality or what makes a good leader. Number 1, high emotional intelligence. Number 2, casts vision but releases creativity. And number 3, they care for people.
That's right.
So I'm going to throw it over to you. How do we apply these principles to our relationships and parenting?
Okay, so if you will allow me to, this is how I'd like to go about it.
Okay.
And you will obviously join me in the process. But I just want to go through each one of those. High emotional intelligence, cast vision, care for people.
Yeah.
And in each one, we will talk about how that applies to our relationships and then how it applies to parenting.
Yeah.
Okay?
That sounds good.
That makes it nice and simple. You guys all know what to expect.
Perfect.
That's how it's going to go down.
Perfect.
So let's start straight off with high emotional intelligence in marriage.
Yes.
This is something that's interesting because I think that it plays out quite differently in marriage than it does in, say, the workplace.
Yes.
Right? So the role of a husband being emotionally intelligent with his wife is different than a boss with an employee or a pastor to a parishioner, whatever the case, right? Obviously, our relationship is going to look a lot different.
Yeah.
So one of the key things that we talked about last week in emotional intelligence was our language, right?
How we speak to each other.
That literally goes over to the marriage relationship.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, if not even more important, how we speak to each other.
Yeah. Yet we find that in relationships where like family dynamics or just really close relationships, we find that we speak with less care to the ones we love.
We do, right? And like, I think that there's that danger of safety there.
Yeah.
Right? Like you've signed the lifetime lease, Shannon. You can't trade me in for another model. That's what we believe about our relationship.
Yeah.
So like there's maybe a tendency for me to get complacent and start acting and reacting out of emotions rather than the care that needs to go into loving you.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Like you said, it's a safe space, so we're comfortable there, and it just automatically, as soon as, if you even think about physical comfort, you just sort of care less.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And so even though you're not like making this mental decision to care less, you kind of are just doing that.
Yeah, you accidentally do it.
Yeah,
right?
because you're comfortable with the
Yes.
person, and so your walls are down, and then you end up being careless with your words and careless with your thoughts, and we should have the opposite, right? The ones we love should be the ones we speak to with the most respect and the most love and the most care.
Yeah, and it takes some work in that.
Yeah.
Right? Like what that means then is that we have to sit with our emotions.
Yeah.
Like,
Which is not comfortable.
Here's the thing about emotions, and the world is emotional right now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Your emotions are real, but not necessarily true.
Yeah. That's true.
Like, no, I don't know that people believe that.
Yeah.
Like, I could walk into a room and my emotions make me feel afraid, and that causes me to believe everybody in here has something against me. And they could all be thinking about everything else besides me.
Likely they are.
Exactly. So our emotions will actually lead us down paths that we cannot trust.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, they're totally real. We have them.
Yeah.
We feel them.
Yeah.
But they shouldn't be our guiding light.
Exactly.
Right? That's not our North Star.
Yeah. Yeah. And if we have the emotional intelligence to recognize that, then it's going to stop us from saying stupid things and being cruel because we're acting out of our emotions.
Yeah. And we don't want to be that for the other person.
No.
So it does take the deep work of sitting with who we are, one.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Because who we are, I'm a more emotional person than you.
Right.
Right? That means just by nature, I need to sit with those emotions longer.
Right.
Because I got to get to the root.
Yeah.
And everybody who feels strong emotions, you need to get to the root of that emotion before you start acting out.
Yeah.
And I know people would be going, well, who's got time for that?
Right.
Well, your relationship has time for that.
Exactly. You need to make it a priority.
You need to make it a priority, and it doesn't take that much. It just takes stopping and going, I'm about to say something.
Yeah. Exactly.
Is this going to hurt, or is this going to build a bridge, or is this going to draw us closer together?
Yeah.
And if the answer is hurt, you stop.
Exactly.
And you go, why am I about to do that?
Learning to control our tongue is like a very important thing that we
lacking
need to do.
in all of us. Like when we talk about this stuff, we are talking about stuff that we are so susceptible to as well.
Absolutely.
And we haven't nailed it.
No.
I've done terrible, low emotionally intelligent things to you.
Everybody has, though.
Right?
Like we all
You've
are
forgiven
guilty
me
of
for
it.
them, and we've moved on, and I try not to do it again.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Well, and that's the key, learning from our mistakes, right?
Yeah. I think another thing that we want to talk about here, though, because it goes along with language.
Yes.
Gossip.
Yeah, gossip is and that might sound weird when you're thinking about a marriage relationship or you know, gossip. Like what?
Yeah.
You mean I can't talk to my husband? No, that's not what we mean.
Yeah.
We mean actually gossiping about our spouse to someone else, right? So one of the worst places that I have seen this is on social media.
Yeah.
You know, Facebook groups or, you know, even Instagram. I find it worse on Facebook, but it just seems to be a place for women to vent and trash their husbands. And the reason is because they can vent and trash their husbands, and there's for sure someone in there that feels the same way about their husband that goes, oh yeah, my husband does this. And then they get validated in their emotion.
Yeah.
And what have they done but create a wedge between them and their spouse? They might not see it. They don't know it's there. It's invisible. But you have done some serious damage.
Yeah. And you've also done damage to yourself in that you've created an endorphin release based around a negative action towards your spouse.
Yes.
So what you're doing is wherever you're not finding the validation or a need's not being met in your relationship, so you seek a place to gain that comfort, to gain a release, whatever the case. You will release endorphins in those situations, right?
Absolutely.
People will like your comment about your husband.
Yeah,
People will comment and it feels good. And I gain followers because I trash my husband.
Yeah, and you go, well, obviously I was right because all these people agree with me.
But even then, besides that, you become habitual. You want to get that endorphin release again.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just online too. I think we have the tendency to, like, women will do this with their girlfriends, right? They'll go out, have a girls' night or whatever, and it's like all of a sudden it turns into this bashing fest on their husbands, and I'm sure men do the same thing too.
I was going to say, and I mean, I would have liked to have been the one to do it, but we shouldn't pile on women here. Men have their places. We just don't tend to go to maybe Instagram so much to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
But it might be the bar. Could be a coffee shop. Could be a sporting event, and we just like get, the women, they're such a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
foolish.
Just, exactly. Like we shouldn't be turning these kinds of things into opportunities to just trash another human being in general, let alone the person you're supposed to love the most.
Yes. So gossip is going to create a wedge. It's going to separate you guys. Another thing, again, in the language, blaming.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, Rarely have I ever seen a relationship where it was 100% one person's fault and 0% the other.
Exactly.
There is going to be that.
Sure.
There's going to be the outlier where that does happen. Danger is most people will assume that they're that outlier.
Yeah.
Like, oh, well, I am on the fringe and she is the whole problem.
Yeah.
Like, and I've seen that happen.
But again, that is low emotional intelligence, right? Not
Super
being able
low.
to admit that you have done something wrong here.
Man, I really wish people would do the hard work of looking inward.
Yeah.
Like, it's such an important practice in our lives for everything that we do.
Yeah.
Looking inward is the place we have to start.
Imagine our society if we did that.
I know.
Like, it would be such a healthier place.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So there's comments like, you know, if you loved me, you would know.
Yeah.
You should just know. Or like, when are you going to learn? When are you going to figure out the one thing you need to learn? Those kind of comments, they belittle.
Absolutely.
Right? And they tear down, and the person on the other side, the person receiving it, is going to turtle. Or run.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So you've got the one person that's lording over the other person.
Yeah.
Well, I'm the better one here and you're the one who's to blame.
That's right.
That is no effective way to communicate with anybody.
No, that's right.
So we need to, I just blamed. We need to recognize when we're starting to do that, because I think we've all done that at some point.
For sure.
Because sometimes it isn't your fault.
No,
right?
exactly.
There are situations where it's like, well, I didn't do anything here. You overreacted.
Yeah.
But we need to come at these conversations constructively and not just out of blame.
That's exactly right. We do need to be constructive because we want to build something together.
Exactly.
And as we're attempting to lead the way, like this is what we're doing. Like, we're trying to do this emotionally intelligent lifestyle. Yeah. We're trying to lead each other in that.
Yeah.
We have to remember that our kids are watching.
Exactly. They see everything.
They see us acting out of emotion, and they go, that is the way to handle that.
Exactly. Yeah. The best way we can teach our kids is through our actions. Mm-hmm. Our words mean very little if our actions don't follow up what we're saying.
Yeah. If doing as I say, not as I do doesn't work.
No, it does not.
Right.
Never.
And then we have this tendency, I think, as parents to make it all about us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And we expect our kids to make our lives easier by having their own high emotional intelligence. Right? So like, we go into a scenario where they didn't act properly and we're like, okay, you've got to figure this out.
Yeah.
Right? And they can't figure it out.
Oh, exactly.
Because they don't get it.
Well, like we seem to have this idea that our children should react in the adult way.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, it's our job to teach them. Right? We can if they react poorly, we go, okay, so this would have been the appropriate way to react. Not just getting mad at them.
No.
And expecting them to have reacted.
And showing low emotional intelligence in our response.
Yeah, exactly. Like we need to recognize that our kids are kids and they're learning and they're not going to respond perfectly. Just like even as adults, we don't respond perfectly.
Yeah. So I think that another thing that is important in that is that we allow our kids that space to grow.
Yes.
Right? Like, when they don't get our teaching right away.
Yeah.
Because we're going to go and teach them calmly. We're going to say, that wasn't right because of this reason.
Yeah.
They might not even get it in that moment.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right? So we might have to let them go and sit on it.
Exactly.
And figure it out. Right?
Yeah.
Instead of us reacting.
Yeah.
And we're guilty of that.
Of course we are.
But the idea is to recognize it and to work on it.
Exactly.
Right?
And also, like, if you have multiple kids, understand that the way you talked to your teenager is not going to be the same way you talk to your 2-year-old, right? They have different abilities.
Yes. Oh, yes. And their minds are in
understanding,
different places,
right?
like, of growth.
So we should recognize that we need to come at each children at what their emotional intelligence is.
Yes, absolutely. We come at each children with
each child.
Each child. That's going to so make the cut. I want that to make the cut. And just a little note at the end, the rule for trashing your spouse online applies to your kids.
It does.
Stop trashing your kids online.
I think there's this trend right now where we want to complain, right? We want to, or maybe we're not going to call it complaining. We want to be transparent.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We want to be real. We want to be authentic. And so that means we complain. That's what it turns into, right?
Yeah.
And I do think there is space for talking about the difficulties of parenting
Yes.
and marriage.
Yes.
But it should never turn into, this is what my kid did and this is why my kid sucks. You know,
for sure.
You need to consider, how would my child feel if they saw this?
That's the big question right there. That's the big question right there.
Exactly. If you wouldn't say it to their face,
I know.
Don't say it to strangers online.
Yeah.
Just don't.
That's low emotional intelligence on your level. If you were to do that, how would they feel if they saw this? I love that's just a simple way to think. How would my child feel?
Exactly.
Because you don't want to hurt your child.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
All right. So we got through high emotional intelligence.
Yes.
It's important for us to have it for marriage, for parenting, to emulate it.
Yes.
So our kids can hopefully live up to that same thing, or see our mistakes and learn from them. But then the next thing we talked about last week was
casting vision, but releasing creativity. So obviously,
this one.
This is like, you might go, okay, how do you work that into marriage and parenting? Because that feels really like businessy.
Yeah. No, I know. I know. And this one is, like emotional intelligence. This one looks
different.
Very different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Because we're not a corporation. We're not like, all right, so how do we, I guess maybe some couples get together and go, how do we make profit over year over year, or how do we gain? But this looks different because I think this starts before you even get married.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Well, it should.
It should start.
Yeah.
And you need to have real discussions before you get married.
Yes.
And if you don't do premarital counseling, I believe that you are setting yourself up for difficulty.
Yeah.
Because there are questions that you need answered before you get married.
Absolutely.
Right?
We're going to actually talk about this more in depth the next week about being on the same page.
Yeah.
So make sure you check in for that one. But yes, it's absolutely important. And because as we grow, our emotional intelligence increases, hopefully.
Yeah.
When you're first starting out, you don't necessarily know the questions you should be asking each other.
No, that's exactly right. All you're thinking about is right on.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm going to spend the rest of my life with you.
Yeah, I'm so in love with this person.
Yeah.
We can have our own home. We can raise the family. We can do whatever we want, and nobody can question it.
Yeah.
And it just it's exciting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can get lost in the excitement.
Absolutely.
But one of the greatest questions we were asked is, what do you guys envision that you will do together?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And why is that important?
Well, it's important because, and again, we don't want to go too deep into this because we have a whole podcast next week on it, but you want to grow together and you want to move together towards whatever that goal is. Because if you have completely separate goals, and I'm not necessarily talking about careers, you can have different careers, but if you have completely separate goals, you're going to move apart from each other.
That's right. So let's leave it there.
Yeah.
Because next week we do talk about it more.
Yeah.
But also it's just like this, starting out with a vision for your family.
Yes.
What is your vision for your family?
Yeah.
How many kids do you want to have?
Yeah.
Right?
Do
Are you both in?
Travel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do you want to be vloggers who go to, all the great places in the world? Yes, please.
Love that. Awesome.
All right. See? Family vision.
Yeah.
Do you want to influence the world?
Yeah.
Like, do you have a message as a family that you need to share with the rest of the world?
Yeah.
These are super important. What is your purpose that is together?
Yeah. And it's important that they are together, like we said before, because if you're not moving towards that goal together, there's always going to be one person in the relationship that ends up sacrificing way more than the other person.
Yeah, that's right. And here's the deal is that we are all built with gifts.
Yeah.
And some are easier to come out, right? Like my gift of talking loudly is more apparent, right, than maybe your gift for writing music or whatever, right? But so one can overtake the other.
Yes.
But we both have gifts and both need to be shared with the world and both need to come out of us because it's who we are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And then plus we, again, we're going to model this for our children.
Yes.
Right? Like what they see us do and how they see us sacrifice for both, like for each other, not just one sacrificing for the other.
Yes.
They're going to hopefully take that into their relationships in the future and say, you know what, this is give and take. It goes both ways.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that it goes along with building each other up.
Yeah.
So when I look at my kids and what I want to teach them, so Sam as the husband, that he needs to nurture care for his relationship with his wife, which means putting her needs first, right?
Yeah.
And that means, like, what has God made you to be?
Yeah.
Right? What are you created to be? How do I back that?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then for my girls, I want them to also believe that for their husbands, but then for themselves as well. And Sam too. I want him to believe that for himself as well.
Yeah.
But to be able to put the other first.
Yeah.
Right? And know that your gifts are going to come out as you do this.
Yeah.
See, like there's a tendency in people to put themselves first.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's our world.
Yeah.
It's absolutely our world.
Absolutely.
What do I have to gain from this situation? You know, that's kind of the motivating factor for a lot of things.
Yeah.
And that's probably not the best motivating factor.
And if I hear a relationship that's like, well, you know what? Well, we're going to get married, but I'm going to be an actor.
Right. You can come
like,
along if you want to. Like,
jump on board or get off board.
Starting at the wrong place.
You need to go be an actor.
Yeah.
Don't get married.
No, don't bring someone else into it if you're not willing to sacrifice.
Exactly, because you're not. You're married to that job. You're married to that career path.
Yeah.
That's what you've decided to put as the most important thing.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be getting married because you cannot love that other person well.
Right, exactly. So then when we're talking about this we're talking about sort of just the family unit in general, but I think that we can really talk specifically about how we lead our kids in that we have this idea before we have kids of what we want their life to look like, right?
Doctor.
Yeah, they're
famous athlete, NHL.
Exactly.
My kid's making the NHL.
And it's just it's an inevitable part of dreaming about your future, right?
Yes.
And that of course you're going to dream for the best things for your kids' future.
Yeah.
However, we need to recognize that those kids are not necessarily going to be who we think they will be.
No. They need to discover who they are on their own.
And we need to release them to do that.
Which is hard for parents.
It is very hard.
So like when we see a kid struggling for grades,
Yeah.
We'll chalk that up possibly to, well, if you don't, you're not going to have the future I envision for you.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, well, we don't know why the kid's necessarily not getting the good grades. Maybe they have attention deficit disorder, or maybe they just find it boring. Maybe they're not being challenged enough, right?
Yeah.
But the idea is to set them up in a way so that they can discover for themselves
Exactly.
who they are.
I think one area that people of faith can really struggle with this.
Yes.
And obviously I'm speaking as a Christian, but I'm sure it applies in other faiths as well.
Yeah.
You want to raise your kids to follow God, right? You want to raise your kids to love what you love. And, you know, your faith is obviously a really foundational part of your life.
Yes.
And you desire that for your kid. And when you see them maybe straying or walking away, you want to grab on and you want to control.
Oh, yeah.
But that is not the way to get them there, right?
Oh.
Like our kids, like it or not,
they won't believe.
They need to discover God on their own.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want my kids to just adopt my faith. I want them to want that faith. I want them to want God, right?
Well, and I think for us, the greater thing with there, too, is that that's what God wants.
Yeah, exactly.
Like for them, he doesn't want them to just go through the motions of what mom and dad did.
Exactly, because it's not real. It's not authentic. And so what we should be desiring as parents, you know, for faith, for their life, for their, you know, future spouses, is for them to be true to who God made them to be.
Absolutely. Now, like, say that's career, say that's their religion, whatever the case.
Yeah.
What ends up happening when we force it on them is that they're actually never, ever able to tap into their own vision for their own life and their own spirituality.
Yes.
And that is more powerful, and that's more motivating than anything else.
Yeah.
Like when a child... I'll move away from the spiritual side and I'll go over to career. When a kid, a teenager, a young adult finally discovers that thing that they were just sort of made to be, right? Like, this is my purpose.
Yeah.
The motivation behind that is insane.
Absolutely.
And we see kids accomplishing crazy, crazy things. Now, the problem can become one for us. It's not what I thought, but also time.
Yeah.
we're like, well, this isn't happening in the time frame that I think it should be.
Yeah.
There are a lot of late bloomers.
Oh, yeah.
Like J.R.R. Tolkien didn't write about The Hobbit until he was old.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know how old, but like 50s or something like that. He didn't get those novels out until he was really old.
Same with J.K. Rowling. She was like in her 40s when Harry Potter came out.
Exactly. So this idea that it has to happen on this specific time frame, and then you're going to go to university, and then you're going to be that thing that I've decided you're going to be.
Yeah, exactly.
Is stealing what could empower them and push them to even greater things.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think, now I don't think that we've personally done this as parents. However, I think there is this societal pressure to know what you want to be before you graduate. Because I was talking with our oldest daughter the other week, and she was like, I don't know what I want to be. And I'm like, you're 14. Like, you've got time to figure it out. Right? And so I hope that we haven't put that pressure on them.
Oh, if anybody did, it was me for sure.
But that just, to me, that just showed the pressure in the world to know exactly what you want to be.
That's right.
But by the time you graduate high school, which is like ludicrous.
Yeah.
Like, what 18-year-old really knows what they want to do with their whole life? There might be a really small percentage.
Yeah.
But what we want to do is foster their interests and their creativity and their talents. Yeah. And hopefully out of those things, they'll discover who they want to be.
Exactly.
And what they want to do.
And so how do we do this? How do we lead this for our relationships in our family? We in our own lives, we cast vision.
Yeah.
As a couple, we cast vision, and then we release that creativity.
Exactly.
Right? So our kids see it. Our kids see that we want to influence people for positive parenting, to feel like they can lead, to feel like they can be a success. Yeah. And the way we go about it and the creativity that we bring to that is just unleashed. If they can see that, then we just hope that that's a positive influence on them.
Exactly.
So it could be a model. They could look at it and go, yeah, okay, no, I see what they did. That's really great.
Yeah.
Hopefully it inspires. Yeah. But like, we don't force it. We don't go, okay, kids, do you see how me and mom did this? Yeah. If you follow this, you will have the same success.
Exactly.
Like, that would be foolish.
Yeah.
What we do is we just do our own, casting our own creativity.
Exactly. And I think,
let them watch.
Exactly. And I think as parents, we should be aware of where our kids' talents lie. Like, we should be looking for that, right?
Yes.
And so you see, there are practical ways to apply this, right? So if you see your kid loves singing and they seem to have a gifting in singing, even though you wanted them to, be an athlete, but really they're a musician, put them in music lessons.
Absolutely.
If they show a gifting towards art, put them in art lessons. Like, help build up those skills that they seem to love.
Yes.
Even if it's not what you were hoping for.
Yes.
And don't tell them it's not what you were hoping for.
And the last thing I have to say on this is, do not let your fear hold them back.
Exactly.
All right. So the third point is caring for people. That's the third point we made last week.
Yes.
And it for sure
this one seems
applies
obvious.
Here. And I think, like, we've talked about it honestly in point 1 and point 2 here consistently all the way through.
Yeah, for sure.
But it comes out this simple. In your marriage, put the needs of your spouse ahead of your own.
Yeah.
And this goes both ways. Yeah. Like, there's this sort of notion, and I think it comes from the patriarchy somehow, and I don't know which way it plays out, honestly, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's sort of just coming out of me right now. But I do think that there's an idea that one deserves to be looked after more than the other.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And I still think it's around.
Oh, for sure it is.
And that's just not right. So, husbands, your job is for your kids to watch you love your wife like nobody else could. Like, you love your wife more than you even show to your children.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, you are, I'm Team Shannon. Right? And that's what my kids need to see. Of course I love my kids, but like, they need to see me putting her first.
Well, and even like, I that's been a complaint of our kids from time to time. Like, why are you guys always on each other's side? Why can't you ever be on my side? Like, well, no, because we support each other. Yeah. And even if we do disagree, we disagree in private and then have a discussion.
Exactly.
Right?
Like, I don't disagree with you in front of the kids.
No.
I don't go, oh, actually, Shannon, you're wrong.
No.
Right? I say, you know what, kids, you need to be listening to your mom here. She's the boss. And then later on, I might go to you and say, okay, is that really how we wanted to handle that?
Yeah.
Or you might do the same to me, right?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, and I mean, the same goes for wives. Like, we need to be caring for our husbands.
Yeah.
We need to be, no matter what, in all situations, we put others first.
It's how it's meant to work in marriage, and this is really difficult for people because people seem to think that we get into marriage to make our own lives better, but we actually get into marriage to become one.
Yes, exactly.
Like we do. We get into marriage to become one, and if you don't want to give up any autonomy, like, don't get married because you have to give up autonomy to become that thing. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not a complete person without Shannon.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, no.
There's none of that. Like,
No.
it doesn't mean, oh, well, you complete me.
Yes.
Oh, barf.
Yeah.
But we have made the decision that we are together and we have become one. We have one focus. We have one love. We have one, I just went Bob Marley there. We have one love. And it's super important that I care for you and you care for me.
Exactly.
So, like, if I'm trying to fulfill my own needs, that gets in the way of fulfilling your needs. When if we're working optimally, I'm getting my needs met.
And so am I.
By you.
Yeah, exactly. We're meeting each other's needs.
And that's so much more powerful than me meeting my own needs.
Absolutely.
Like, how easy is it for me to meet my own needs?
Right.
I need to eat a pistachio.
Yeah.
I'm going to eat a pistachio.
Yeah. No, it's so true. Like, if we're just meeting our own needs all the time, we become very inward focused and we become very selfish. And then what does that show our kids?
It teaches them to be selfish.
Exactly.
But that's happening.
Yeah.
Like,
well, and it's just, we need to, when you love someone, when you care for someone, you want to meet their needs.
I know.
Like, you do.
I know.
You want to.
Yes.
And that doesn't mean we're not saying that you can never have time for yourself or do things you enjoy. Like, that's not what we're saying.
No.
But just at the core of love, it's wanting to serve another person. It's wanting to make them happy and,
So today, I'm going to go home and I'm going to play PlayStation 5 NHL 22. Unless you need me.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. Exactly.
And you're like, okay, I would prefer Rob to do this, but he needs some downtime, so I'm going to let him have that.
Right.
Unless you need me.
Yeah.
But you also know what I need.
Yeah.
So you allow me to have those things.
Yeah. And obviously,
and it works.
As your marriage grows, as you mature, these things you hope become more and more clear. Right? Like
oh, yes.
Understanding the other person's needs, recognizing when they're stressed out and you might need to take the burden off of them.
Yep.
Another really good place where we can...
Sorry, but you said something really good there.
Yeah.
I think that the key there is that if you don't put the other person's needs first ever, you can never know that.
No.
Like, you can't get to the place of understanding what they really, really, really need because you're always putting yourself first. Go on. Sorry.
And
I thought that was good.
Yeah, and I mean, ideally, this is our most intimate relationship, right?
Oh,
so
yeah,
that should
by
mean
far.
I want to know you better than anybody knows you.
And I need you to know me better than anybody else knows me.
Exactly. And so that means that we recognize our differences, and that can include recognizing our differences in how we receive love.
Totally. So, yeah, you're not me and I'm not you.
No.
Right?
We receive love very differently.
Absolutely. And I think this is hilarious because the way we receive love is not created equal. But, yes.
In your opinion.
In my opinion. I always make fun of this. But.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a great book, you've probably heard of it, called The Love Languages.
Yeah.
Right? The 5 Love Languages.
I've heard of it, yes.
Yeah. I'm talking to our listeners.
Oh, sorry.
The 5 Love Languages. And it just talks about, the different ways people receive love. And the truth is if you're not getting those needs met, you're not going to feel loved.
No. The interesting thing I think about the 5 love languages, so I had a person come to me and say, I just don't really believe in the love languages because I think that we need them all. I'm like, there's truth
sure.
there.
Yeah,
There's truth there. For sure. There's truth there. We all need a gift every once in a while. Yeah. We all need words of encouragement. We all need but there are one or two that just really, really fill us up.
Absolutely.
Right? And that, I don't like that phrase. It grosses me out.
But it's true.
Yeah. It strengthens me, right? Yeah. Like when mine would be words of encouragement and
touch.
Yeah. Like
physical touch.
A hug. Yeah. Right? And so when I don't get those, I start to think something's wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And because those aren't my natural tendencies, while I love those things, those aren't my, strengths or because I receive love differently, it's not my natural instinct to love that way.
That's everyone. Yes.
Right?
Exactly.
And so we have to be really aware, and this goes back to emotional intelligence.
Yes.
We need to be really aware of how we also receive love, which that's probably how we show love.
Yep.
And then we have to recognize, okay, wait, that is not how they receive love.
Yeah.
So I really need to be aware of what I'm doing and how I'm affecting my spouse, and adjust if I need to adjust.
Yeah.
And that might take daily reminders, because if it's not ingrained in you, it's not going to come naturally.
That's right. And here's a trick I think that is true about it. If you want to receive from them, like, don't read the love languages and then go to your spouse, well, this is what you need to do for me.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, start doing it for them, and it's going to change their lives.
Right.
And what they will want to do out of that is give you that love back.
So true.
Right?
It's so
the way
true.
we do it is so backwards.
Yeah.
We just go in with guns blazing. Yeah. Like, if you knew me, you would know that touch is my thing, and you never do that, and blah, blah, blah. And like, that doesn't work. But yet if I start, giving you acts of service, you start to go, oh, like I feel cared for. Yeah. How do I care for him well? Yeah. Right?
Exactly.
And this is not about who's late to the game.
Yeah.
It's about lead the way.
Yeah, exactly.
You're a leader.
Exactly. Yes. And this, exactly.
Yes, we agree. So, when you get into a marriage, there seems to be this misconception that you can change the other person.
Right.
There's also a misconception that somebody will never change.
Right. Or maybe you don't want them to change because you like who they are right now.
You don't. That's a better way to put it for sure. So neither of those are true.
No.
And I want you to know that when we're talking about the love languages. Like, don't try and change their love language.
No.
But that comes with other things too. Like if you think, okay, Shannon is just perfect the way she is. I hope that she never changes her hair. I hope that she always wants to serve me this way, whatever the case.
Yeah.
4 kids, moving continents, moving cities, buying and selling houses, that all changes a person.
Oh, yeah.
Not to mention your spiritual journey.
Yeah.
If you are not changing, that is so problematic.
Yeah.
Right?
It means you're stuck.
It means you're stuck.
Yeah.
But also on the other side, if you think you're going to go in and turn somebody into something that they're not, good luck.
That's the thing. If you're starting off, so this is advice to people who are either engaged or dating or whatever. If there are like a lot of core issues that you do not like about that person, you think, I'll change those once we're married. Don't. That is not the way to start a relationship.
Please stop.
Because people are, like, we have our personalities, and that doesn't mean we can't grow, but don't go in assuming that you're going to change the things you don't like about that person.
Nope.
Because when it inevitably doesn't happen, you're going to be disappointed.
Yep. 100%, and I think that you need to then just take a step back.
Yeah.
And your real care for other people starts again by looking inward.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? You look inward and say, what can I do to make this situation better?
Yeah.
And when you do that, it's going to make your situation better. Like, I'm just going to leave it there.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah, and I mean, so again, now we're coming back to our kids, right? As with everything, our kids are watching. So they're watching how we react to each other, how we love each other, how we serve each other. And then we are hopefully teaching them good things, right? Like, we want to teach them how to serve each other. We don't want to be raising entitled, selfish children.
No.
And the best way to teach them is through
not being entitled and selfish.
Exactly, through our actions.
Oh. They need to see us leading the way.
Exactly.
In our care for like one another.
Yeah.
Has to happen because that is how they're going to treat their relationships when they're older.
Yeah.
It plays out all the time.
Yeah.
Right? But they also need to see how we treat other human beings.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Right? How we speak about other human beings.
Well, okay, so you think about, like, you've all heard, a story about a teacher saying, this kid said, oh, well, my mom said blah, 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 or my dad said blah, 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 right? Because they're listening, they're hearing what we say, and then they are, what's the word? Not reflecting, but like...
Yeah, regurgitating.
Yeah. What they've seen.
Yes.
And you might not even realize that they saw it.
And they don't even necessarily realize that they're regurgitating it.
But they did. They do.
But that's their capacity. I mean, that's how we learn.
Yeah.
It's like why I have a mentor.
Exactly.
Right? Even at 40 or I have a mentor or two, and I will end up regurgitating some of the things that they do just because that is the process of learning.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
I mean, that's how kids learn language, right? We don't set out necessarily like, okay, now is our English lesson. No, they listen and then they start talking.
Yeah. You know where the biggest area I think that you could make a real impact on your kids' lives as far as caring for other people is caring for your enemy.
Right. Yeah, and that's hard.
So it's a biblical thing.
Yeah.
We are believers, so it's something that we do believe. And I honestly think that the Christian world struggles with it.
Yeah.
But the person who did you wrong, don't return evil for evil.
Yeah.
Instead of praying curses on them, you pray a blessing over them.
Yeah, exactly.
And the right blessing is going to come, and it's going to affect both of you in a positive way. But you, at the very least, own your reaction.
Yeah, exactly.
And you are being watched by your children. And so your children will see how to handle every situation. Yeah. And I have to say that revenge doesn't soothe the soul.
No.
There are definitely deeper levels of wanting justice or revenge.
Yeah.
But on the basic level of I've been wronged, I need to get revenge, it's juvenile.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And
exactly.
it's trying to meet a need that it's not going to meet.
No, exactly.
You are not going to get what you want out of
No.
it. You are not going to feel like a better person because you got revenge.
Yeah.
You will, by taking the high road, by not allowing this person to change who you are, you will come out the other side feeling built up, feeling like a better person because you did that.
Exactly.
So I want to encourage people, love your enemy as real.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely.
And your kids can learn it.
Yeah.
And if you can love your enemy well, like everybody else.
Yeah, imagine that the next generation will actually care for one another.
Well, we have a world that doesn't care for one another.
Yeah, they really don't.
No, they don't. And it's really, really hard to watch as our biggest motivations right now are likes and being heard.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or maybe the other way around. Being heard and then having people like it.
Yeah. And while it is important to be heard,
we all should be heard.
Yeah.
By someone.
It should that be our driving force?
No.
In life? And I mean, I think we can go back to casting vision for our family, right? So when you're doing that, when you're casting vision for your family, you should be thinking about what kind of kids do I want to raise?
Yes.
Who do I want them to be when they're adults?
Yes.
I guarantee you nobody wants to raise vindictive children.
No.
Right? But,
of course not.
So we really need to be aware of how we're acting towards one another and towards other people.
Yep.
But also, and we haven't touched on this, how we treat them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Care for them is vital.
Oh, of course. Putting their needs first.
Yeah.
Right?
But
not in the way that I think it's been done.
Right. Yeah. We don't
put their needs first.
Yeah. We don't just give them everything they ask for and everything they want because then we're on our way to, raising entitled kids. And in a couple of weeks, we're going to be talking about
Do we talk about char charts?
We can talk about char charts.
Now, or do we talk about it in a couple of weeks? Are we going to be?
I think we'll talk about it in a couple of weeks.
Oh,
but
man.
we're going to say my kid's perfect. That's what we're going to be talking about. Sarcastically.
Yeah. Well,
because
what I want to say right now about chore charts is get your kids doing chores
Exactly.
because that gives them a sense of valuing everything that they have.
Well, and it shows care for them because you are instilling in them basic life skills.
Absolutely.
Right?
This idea that we give our kids everything they want and let them play and let them only have fun is not giving them what they need.
No.
It's giving them what they want.
Exactly. So, yes, we absolutely need to show care, love, compassion for our children.
Yes.
And yeah, I think all the things we talked about it all kind of comes, together with that.
Yes.
Caring for our children, caring for each other, just caring for people in general.
Yeah. Right. And so I think with all of it, it just goes back to the deep work that we need to do to understand our emotions, right?
Yep.
To understand how we can care well for other people, and then, show people creativity, show people vision, but don't force it, right? Like, just do the deep work that needs to be done to understand who you are and what motivates you.
Yeah.
And then kind of go do the right thing.
Yeah. Exactly.
That makes sense?
I think it makes sense.
Okay.
So next week, we are going to be talking about being on the same page, which we touched on just briefly this week. Super important. So we hope you will tune in.
Yeah, I'm eating pistachios now.
Yeah, sorry for
I already
that.
bailed.
So thank you guys so much for listening again. Make sure you give us a follow.
Yeah.
Come find us on social media. We'd love to hear from you. So
yeah, we really appreciate you. As always, and jump in on the conversation.
Yeah,
we want to
please
hear
do.
your thoughts.
Yes.
All right.
All right.
This has been Leading Real Life. Ciao.
Bye.